Hey guys, welcome back. Raccoon MMA. Big moment. This is coming up on the 1 year anniversary of this channel. I made this channel specifically to complain about the idea that Valentina Shevchenko would get a third chance to fight Alexa Grasso. Look what's happening. Valentina Shevchenko is getting a third chance to fight Alexa Grasso. It is what it is. It'll be a good fight. UFC 306 is here. UFC is returning to the Sphere. It's another Mexican Independence Day card. Should be good. You know, people have been complaining about the card. I like it. I think that there are some names on there that are a bit more unknown, but that's okay because every single fight is good. Like, there are no fights on there that aren't good. At the very least, no fights that don't have at least one good fighter. So I think it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. I've already bought the pay-per-view because I'm excited, man. And I'm not just saying this because I'm Alexa Grasso's #1 fan. I'm saying this because it's a genuinely good card. Although I don't quite know what Merab and O'Malley are doing at the top of it, but they probably sell a little bit more. So whatever gets Grasso the most pay-per-view points, I guess. Although I still think she should be headlining and they should co-main because whatever. Anyways, let's get into it. We'll start off with my MMA Culpa. Guys, 305 kicked my ass, dude. It was bad. Like, it was really bad. Yeah, it wasn't good. I only picked 4 fights, and I got them all wrong. So I lost a full 2% on my accuracy. I was sitting pretty comfortable at 64. That wasn't really changing all that much, and then I went down 2 points. I'm gonna have to make it up big time. Although if it makes you feel any better, one of those fights was a robbery because Mateus Gamrot did beat Dan Hooker. So if you are counting the fights that I consider robberies, that would bring my accuracy up to 67%. Also down 2 points from the 69 it was at before. Method accuracy, so if I correctly pick a fight and I've picked how it's going to end, i.e. decision, submission, KO, TKO, I'm 71% accuracy there. So out of the 45 correct picks with the method picked, 32 of those have been correct, 13 have been incorrect. So, you know, if I get a fight right, I know how it's going to end, basically. But clearly my odds of getting a fight right are going down. I'm picking too many underdogs, guys. It's not good. I need to stop. I'm picking with my heart. But let's get right into it. Some quick picks. Raul Rosas Jr. versus Aoriqi Lang. Good fight. Fun fight. Both fun fighters. And Edgar Chairez versus Joshua Van, stepping up on short notice pretty recently after he got knocked out by Charles Johnson against a solid fighter. My picks are as follows. I believe that Raul Rosas Jr. will beat Aoriqi Lang. Aoriqi Lang is a good fighter, but his chin is just not there anymore. His defense is not there anymore. Raul Rosas Jr. is too explosive for him, so I think he's going to win that fight. I also think that Joshua Van is good enough to fight carefully against Chairez. He does absorb a lot of shots, but I think that he's smart enough to know not to throw himself into the fire. I think this is one of the best guys at 125. Despite that knockout loss, I think that was just inexperience. I think he's probably learned a lesson. And if he hasn't, then he's not the fighter that I think he is, and he's not the fighter that a lot of people think he is. So I do believe he will beat Chairez. All right, on to some actual analysis. We start off with Irene Aldana versus Norma Dumont. This is a good fight, guys. This is a really good fight. Again, I don't know why people are complaining. Irene Aldana is coming off of an absolute barn burner of a fight. Probably fight of the year in 2023. In December, she fought Carol Hoza, who is, much like Norma Dumont, a solid Muay Thai striker versus Irene Aldana, who is, of course, a boxer. Hoza took advantage of Irene Aldana's big, wide boxing stance and chewed the hell out of her leg. Aldana had a knee injury and could not check the kicks, so her leg was basically purple by the end of the first round. Hoza was hitting her shin on both sides. She was hitting her thigh on both sides. That lead leg was just gone. Aldana just decided, you know what? Doesn't matter. She didn't even switch stances. She just kept marching Hoza down. She won the last 2 rounds by just battering her, beating the hell out of her. And, of course, she got the hell beat out of her as well. That's what makes a fight of the year. And won the fight 29-28. Really, really good. Norma Dumont is coming off of some solid performances. She is probably most famous for that infamous clip. She fought Chelsea Chandler. There was some animosity there. I forget why, but if I had to guess, it's because Chelsea Chandler probably missed weight. And Dumont was kind of kicking her ass, and Chandler turned around and sprinted away from her. So if you've seen that image, that's Norma Dumont who's chasing. Dumont is good. She is, like Hosa, a solid Muay Thai striker. Not as good in the striking department, but she's really good with her clinch. She's got some good judo throws. Like, she's a bit more of a grappling threat than Hosa is. I mean, Hosa has good BJJ, but her transitions, her ability to get a fight to the ground are not as good as Norma Dumont. So, at first I was kind of pissed when they announced this fight. I'm like, what the hell? Aldana should be in a title eliminator. She should be fighting Kayla Harrison, realistically, and then the winner gets to go fight the winner of Pennington versus Pena. Although I'm much happier for Aldana to fight Harrison when it's actually for the title, because I love both those fighters. But I think Dumont is an important test for her, just in the sense of like, so here's somebody who could mix it up. Here's someone who can physically dominate. Aldana should be in featherweight, and that division doesn't exist anymore. Norma Dumont, of course, was a featherweight for a while. So this should be an interesting fight. These are two bigger ladies for the division. And I like that it's not just one of those cases where you're putting a striker in front of Aldana and just saying, okay, I'll box her. There's some real sort of... Dumont has a real ability to mix it up. But with that being said, this is not a competitive striking match. Right before recording this, I rewatched Norma Dumont actually fought Carol Hosa, who was Aldana's last fight. That's why I rewatched this. And total robbery, by the way. Dumont got the win. This was at featherweight. Dumont was given the win, but I think it was a pretty clear 2-1 fight for Carol Hosa. And she has some very, very, very bad habits. She jumps backwards with her hands down when she doesn't like what's going on. If you get too close, she'll jump backwards with her hands down. She also throws power punches with zero head movement. This is not a game that you want to be playing against Irene Aldana, who probably is the best boxer at 135. Certainly up there. Certainly somebody who hits very hard, has a lot of range, is very perceptive. So I think that Dumont is going to get hit. And she's going to get hit hard. Aldana is somebody who makes her opponents bleed. I think that her path to victory is going to be the clinch, right? You push Aldana up against the fence, you try and outmuscle her. I don't know if that's going to happen. It might, though, right? Dumont is stockier, she's more powerful, Aldana's a bit rangier. But yeah, you push her against the fence, maybe you do some throws in there, you take her down a little bit. Aldana very famously has zero ground game, although she did knock somebody out with an up kick to the liver once, which is pretty cool. I think that was Chesson. But I don't think that happens, right? Aldana is so good at her elusive movement. Again, that whole fight against Carol Hosa, Hosa was trying to clinch her, and she just couldn't. She couldn't get to her. And Aldana, of course, is very rangy. She does have a reach advantage and a height advantage on Dumont. I want to say Aldana knocks her out. I think it was a 5-round fight. I'll be very confident in that. But Dumont does absorb damage pretty well. She's pretty durable. So I'm going to say Aldana by decision. I'm very confident in that. After that, Aldana should be fighting for a title. I guess she'd be in line behind Kayla Harrison if Kayla Harrison wins next month. But if Kayla Harrison loses, I don't think you should give the shot to Vieira. I think you should give it to Aldana. So this is an important fight. I'm interested. Let's see what happens. All right, moving on up the card. Diego Lopes versus Brian Ortega. This is a fight that I have picked this fight before, and it just didn't happen. But this is a fun fight, right? These are both grapplers with solid boxing, which always makes fun fight. Brian Ortega is super tough. He does have decent striking. He hits hard, and he has some good habits. And of course, he's got great submission grappling. He's very strong in the clinch. He's a good wrestler too. He has that kind of missing link that a lot of grapplers don't, which is that he actually is pretty solid at getting people to the ground. It's not wrestling that can hold up against a world-class fighter like, someone like Max Holloway, someone like Alexander Volkanovski. But against the Yair Rodriguez's of the world, his wrestling is fantastic. And against somebody who is willing to be on their back, like Diego Lopes, his wrestling is probably perfectly adequate, right? Ortega is also famous for his chin. This is a guy who, gets hurt and keeps going. He's got spirit. He doesn't get knocked out. But of course, in his last fight against Yair Rodriguez, which he did win, he submitted Yair in the third. He got absolutely punked in the first round. He got 10-8'd. It was almost a 10-7. It was really bad. I doubt that his chin is cracked. I just think that before he fought Yair Rodriguez, he just didn't really fight people with that one-punch power who knock people out. The name Yair Rodriguez is synonymous with highlight reel knockout. He doesn't actually have that many knockouts, but he knocked out the Korean Zombie, so there you go. But he does, he knocks people down. He hits really hard. And Ortega, to his credit, he survived that. He came back after getting the snot beat out of him in the first round to beat the snot out of Yair in the second round and submit him in the third. But Lopes does hit crazy hard. He knocked out Sadiq Yusuff like it was nothing. He went chin for chin with Dan Ige, and it kind of worked. He's really, really good in the clinch. He's super sneaky with his round shots, his hooks and his uppercuts. He's got a really good outside leg kick, and very good footwork. It's just a classic Lobo Gym boxing plus outside leg kick that serves people like Aldana or like Alexa Grasso or Lupi Godinez really, really well. It is kind of predictable, though. You kind of know exactly what he's going to do. People are talking about his cardio, Lopes, that is, because, again, he fought Dan Ige. If you are new to MMA, these guys were supposed to fight. They put together the fight on 2 weeks' notice to save UFC 303 after Conor McGregor left. And, again, it was 2 weeks' notice. Ortega was actually building to lightweight, a weight class up, so he was really struggling. He got sick trying to make the cut. Lopes had cut to 146. He rehydrated up to 155 to fight Ortega at lightweight, but Ortega had to pull out anyways. So he rehydrated all the way, and then they found a replacement, this guy Dan Ige, who they fought at a catch weight of 165. So Lopes had to cut weight again, only a few pounds, but still cut weight again on the day of the fight to weigh in and fight Ige, which is not great for your cardio. It's not great for your durability. So I'm not super low on Diego Lopes cardio, especially because we saw him, for example, really bring the fight to Movsar Evloev in the third round, and we haven't seen him go 15 in the UFC in any other case, right? I think that his last fight was just the weight cut thing, and he won anyways, right? He dominated Ige until he gassed. So I think that, it's an interesting fight. And, of course, Lobo Gym fighters do not have the best cardio. But I think that, especially for a 3-rounder, Lopes is perfectly adequate. I also think that, Ortega, people talk about how much damage he can absorb. But, that means that he absorbs a lot of damage, right? As I said, the Yair performance wasn't great. They fought twice. The first time, the shoulder injury saved Ortega from being finished, properly. And in the second fight, Yair just blitzed him looking for a finish in the first round and then gassed out because it was at altitude in Mexico City, and Ortega was able to take advantage. I think that both these guys are comfortable on the ground, so it probably will end up there sooner rather than later. But is Diego Lopes super strong? Probably not as strong as Ortega, who seems really kind of physically powerful in the grappling exchanges. But I think that there's also a mental factor in it, right? Ortega's heart is not in this. It was not in it the first time around. It's going to be even less in it the second time around, right? He doesn't want to be at featherweight anymore. He wants to move up to lightweight. And he's only doing this out of obligation because he feels bad for pulling out the first time. I think that probably Lopes decides he wants to keep it standing early, maybe halfway through the first round, and I think he's probably going to be able to largely do that, not necessarily by defending takedowns, but by executing sweeps and standing back up. And I think he's going to damage Ortega. He's going to TKO him in the second or the third. love Diego, go Lobo Gym. A lot of respect for Ortega too, but I'm going to predict that Diego Lopes will get a technical knockout or a knockout over Brian Ortega. Fairly confident. Moving on, up the card. This is the main event, but to me, it's the co-main event because, again, Alexa Grasso is the GOAT. So we're doing it first. Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili. The first thing I want to say here is I want to address that clip that's circulating around Twitter of Merab being chinned and knocked down and hurt in the exact same way with the exact same strike by Marlon Moraes and Henry Cejudo. And of course Sean O'Malley's a big striker. I'll note a few things. First of all, those are two guys who are actually effectively defending his wrestling. These are guys with ground games of their own. And these high quality strikers that Merab has fought, like Petr Yan and Jose Aldo, were not able to do that to him, probably because he fought them differently, right? Rather than Cejudo and Moraes, who he was probably trying to, have a different type of ground game against. And I'm going to talk about that specific thing and Merab being hit in that specific way later. I think, but to be fair, if anyone's going to hit Merab in the right place, it's going to be Sean O'Malley. That guy is an absolute laser, especially with his right hand. I think that the Merab, his pressure is his road to victory here. He will have a cardio advantage. I have said before on these videos that, like I said specifically before Sean fought Cheeto, that he was going to have cardio problems in that fight, and he didn't. And I'm fully fessing up to being wrong about that. But I still kind of stand by my line of analysis here, because I think that line of analysis does apply to somebody who's actually going to fight O'Malley, rather than someone who's going to move backwards for 5 rounds and be a heavy bag. Right, Sean O'Malley has only been past 15 minutes once in his entire career, and that was against Cheeto, who didn't hit back. He's got a style that's very feint heavy, it's very movement heavy. He likes his spinning kicks, although I suspect that he's not going to throw them against Merab. I'm sure that he, like everyone, watched Alexa Grasso submit Valentina Shevchenko off a spinning kick, and he's like, I'm not playing that game against Merab. But, he throws with a lot of volume. He throws with a lot of power. He feints a lot. He moves a lot. This is cardio heavy, and he doesn't have a lot of meat on his bones, which means that Merab, if he hits him hard in the ribs or in the belly, can really dig in there. I think especially in the clinch, which is where Merab wants this fight to be, he can tear him up if he's against the fence, if O'Malley's got his face to the fence and Merab has his back, right? Because it's kind of the meta now in MMA to give your back in order to break the grip. Merab will be able to hit him in the head from behind and hit him in the ribs and the belly from behind. I think that very clearly what Sean needs to do to beat Merab is to just beat him like he unfortunately beat Aljamain Sterling. Catch him coming in, catch him early. And he can do that, right? Merab throws the same type of huge looping overhands in order to sort of enter into a wrestling, into a single leg, that got Aljo caught. So I'm not saying that this can't happen. But I think that Merab's speed will be a problem for Sean. Yes, Merab has a suspect chin, although he recovers well. And again, I don't think it matters when the one punch that everyone is freaking out about was a counter left hook off of slipping Merab's lead hook to the head. Right? O'Malley is 5 inches taller than Merab, while Cejudo was shorter than Merab. Moraes was the same height as Merab, but, it's short enough that he still ended up being in a brace belt and short cop compilation. I think that Sean will not be slipping underneath Merab's hooks to the head and ending up with his shoulders level to Merab's in order to wind up with a big hook like that. I think that Merab is going to spend a lot of this fight working Sean's body. And if he hits O'Malley in the head at all, it will mostly be with straights or, as I said, from behind while he's got the clinch or ground and pound or whatever. I think also, the mental aspect of this fight will be huge. I think that Merab can make Sean just give up mentally. Sean has a style that, obviously it's fun to watch, but it also seems like it's a lot of fun to do because you really are just kind of styling on guys and hitting them hard and knocking them down and stuff. I think that if Merab can frustrate him and just shut down his game, make it so that Sean can't even get range, let alone get his shit off, This will be huge just in the mental game and frustrating Sean. I think that Merab will unanimously decision him, despite wearing a bit of damage early, same way he did to Aldo and Jan. Merab, by decision, unless he gets caught, but I think he's going to win by decision, and new. Belt's going to Georgia. All right, up the card, 2. I would say the people's main event. I really mean my main event. This is the 3rd time that we're watching this fight. We have a lot of data to look over. I've watched both of their fights a lot. Their second fight is one of my favorite fights ever. I just think that such an amazing display of high quality and also every aspect of the MMA game. Same way that, I feel about Poirier versus Makhachev, and I'm sure a lot of you feel that way about that too. That's how I feel about their second fight. And of course, their first fight is legendary. So, in their first fight, Shevchenko obviously has her big southpaw Muay Thai thing. It works really well for her. She also has a well-developed ground game that she's been showcasing against, like Jessica Andrade recently. First fight, Grasso comes out in southpaw, so closed stance, which Shevchenko is not used to. She's used to fighting people who fight her in orthodox. They come out with the open stance where their lead hands are touching each other. The body's wide open for Shevchenko's kicks. So when Grasso comes out and makes it closed stance, her body is not vulnerable to those kicks. She's able to use her jab to push Shevchenko back, set up combos, hit her hard. She clearly doesn't like it, and force Shevchenko to use her ground game, which works really well against Grasso in the first fight. Going into the 4th round, Shevchenko is up 2-1. Grasso starts to tag her up again because Shevchenko starts to fade in terms of cardio. And then Grasso uses her footwork, but she's been doing this the whole fight, pushing Shevchenko up against the cage, in terms of crowding her, not actually clinching her and doing it, and cutting her off. Bait Shevchenko into throwing a big spinning kick, takes the back, takes her down, submits her. Second fight, Grasso, who is a very good switch hitter, but usually fights in orthodox, comes out orthodox for about 45 seconds, gets kicked in the belly 3 times, is yeah, I remember why I fought Shevchenko southpaw, and fights the rest of the fight in southpaw. I think that this is an important thing to keep in mind, is that, Shevchenko is probably not as used to fighting southpaws, but Grasso is, despite being a good switch hitter, she has been forced to fight southpaw against Shevchenko in 2 fights. She's probably learned her lesson now and will be practicing in southpaw a lot, but it's still not what she's most comfortable in. I think this is something to keep in mind, but I think she's going to be better in southpaw in this fight than she has been historically against Shevchenko, just because it's not an adjustment that she's making in the fight. It's she's probably going to come out in southpaw. The other thing that's interesting about the second fight, more than the first fight, is that Shevchenko kind of dominates the majority of time in these fights, and she's by point fighting Grasso, basically, right? She kicks her in the leg, she jabs her in the face, right? She clinches her, she takes her down. Whereas, and she'll win the majority of the time in the fight by doing this, and then Grasso will just claw rounds back by creating these big moments, right? So in their second fight, and by the way, I have no notes here. I'm just yapping. So if I take a few more pauses, it's just because I'm thinking. I had notes for all the other fights, but I just decided to film the video because I've seen this fight so many times that I feel like I could just talk about it. So in the first round of their rematch, again, Grasso comes out orthodox. She gets kicked in the belly a few times. She changes her mind. She switches to southpaw. And Shevchenko is pushing her back with the jab. Grasso's jab is also working really well. And her power hand is working really well. That would be her left hand. In terms of straight shots hitting Shevchenko, which usually these Lobo Gym fighters like their hooks, but that's harder to do against someone like Shevchenko, who's so good off the counter and relatively quick. She seems to have a real... she may have an advantage in hitting Shevchenko hard. That's what the commentators seem to be saying. I don't necessarily know if this is true, but at the very least, Shevchenko really did not like being hit. But the first round was largely Grasso being point fought successfully in terms of leg kicks, in terms of jabs. The second round, Grasso starts using her footwork really well. She's pivoting, she's cutting angles on Shevchenko, and she manages to get Shevchenko completely square to her and land, kind of in a right angle to her. And she lands this big hook while Shevchenko is not bladed. She's squared up and knocks her right down. Shevchenko has to do, it's a spectacular knockdown. Shevchenko has to do a somersault to get back up. Grasso clinches her, hits her in the clinch, hits her in the knees, but she gets a bit excited, gets taken down, stands back up, but wins the round by creating a big moment. In the third round, Shevchenko says, enough of this stand-up nonsense, takes Grasso down, sinks in the guillotine, but Grasso is able to outlast it, stand up in the end. But we're at 2-1 to Shevchenko. In the fourth round, again, same old business with Shevchenko shooting for takedowns, although Grasso is stuffing them at this point. And Shevchenko, jabbing, leg kicking, things like this. This is, kind of the round that everything and all the controversy about the second fight hinges on. Grasso won it, though, and she did it in two ways. The first is by defending a takedown and kneeing Shevchenko in the head quite a few times in a way that Shevchenko thought was illegal but wasn't. And then later also hitting a big elbow in combination on Shevchenko, taking her and also locking in a submission attempt, a heel hook near the end of the round. Well, Shevchenko was able to land a solid elbow, breaking away from the clinch on Grasso that cut her open. And then in the fifth round, Grasso completely gassed. Shevchenko is pushing her back with the jab, and in the final minute, she tries to put a stamp on the round, does a head and arm throw. Grasso takes her back before they even hit the ground, sinks in a rear naked choke. It doesn't quite work. Sinks in a crank. Doesn't quite work. Beats Shevchenko up a bit. Probably takes the round. But the fight is declared a draw because of some dubious scoring. If you want to hear me talk about that when my emotions were still raw, you can go back to the very first video on my channel, and I am yapping about it in full force. But it's interesting because Grasso is creating these moments where she does something spectacular and Shevchenko to win a round, while Shevchenko kind of proves herself to be the technically better striker and the technically better ground game fighter as well. So it's kind of like Shevchenko has a wider bag, but Grasso has a deeper bag because she's pulling out these big striking moments. She's pulling out these submission attempts. She's countering well, things like that. And I think that this is interesting because I think that it's a risky way for Grasso to win fights, but I think it becomes better and better when we realize that, unfortunately, and I say this even as a Grasso fan because of how amazing Shevchenko was in her prime, Shevchenko is in a pretty serious physical decline, whereas Grasso is just hitting her prime, right? So I think that Grasso is kind of on the up in terms of her skills and her ability. She was certainly better when she fought Shevchenko the second time around than when she fought Shevchenko the first time around. That fight was super competitive the whole time, instead of just Grasso has moments of success here. Oh, she's taken her back. Oh, she's a new champion, right? So I think that these moments are going to be more and more serious. I think that Grasso is going to be able to, work that southpaw stance a bit better. I think she's going to be able to deal with the jab of Shevchenko more because she's going to be drilling it now. And figuring out that closed stance southpaw fight that she wants, such that if she needs to, she can switch up to orthodox and confuse Shevchenko, rather than having orthodox be the default. Shevchenko certainly has a path to victory in this fight. These were very competitive fights both times. That's one of the reasons why I don't think this fight should be happening, because I think that Grasso should be defending the belt against other people. And Shevchenko has a very real chance to win, which would put even more of a delay on this division, because then you'd have to do a fourth fight. But I'm super confident that Alexa Grasso not only wins this fight, but finishes Shevchenko again. I say she's going to TKO her. I think she's going to drop her. She's going to be a bit smarter and more measured this time. And she's going to hurt her really bad and finish her off. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, like it, subscribe to my channel, comment if you agree or disagree with my takes, and root for Alexa Grasso this weekend, guys. She is, if you put everybody in the world in a room, it's not John Jones walking out, it's Alexa Grasso. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.